kitchen accessories. The idea is that a lot of woodworkers nowadays use furniture lumber in the realm of kitchenwares, and I find that not only costs the durability aspect of it, but it also limits your ability to use the native trees that are around you, because of course processing lumber takes a very long time. But for the last 11 years, I have been processing my own lumber and doing it in a way that is designed for kitchenwares. I don't kiln dry. Actually, it will air dry for a long time. They'll be sealed in anchor seal. You guys probably know what that is. So I'll seal them up and I'll let them sit for about 3 or 4 years. Some of these trees, I let them sit for much longer, depending on how dense their grain is or how the grain, will retain water. And so I tend to travel around Rhode Island with my chainsaw, harvesting as many trees as I can and gathering, really nice, great pieces. This right here is actually one that I want to save for this demo because it has a really beautiful linear grain structure. It's called Zelkova. You guys know what that is? It's in the elm family. So it's not a native tree, but it is a tree that comes from a very special property. It comes from Newport Vineyards down in Middletown. So Newport Vineyards planted these trees a long time ago in like a Japanese garden. So Zelkovas are in the elm family. So they have this particular elm, Zelkova, has an extraordinarily linear and centralized trunk that branches into a really distinctive angled V pattern. So when you see a Zelkova tree, it almost looks like an exploding firework going straight up, where it has a very V-shaped linear pattern. The grain itself is extremely dense. It's actually used for drum making in Japan. Those really large ceremonial drums, you can see these guys beating these giant drums. They're made of Zelkova because of their impact resistance. So that alone sort of gives this grain a strong edge when it comes to tightness and sealing up from water damage and things like that, as well as impact resistance. The only tricky part about this tree in particular is that when it is fresh, it smells absolutely horrific. It smells like a horse barn, and it smells like that for months and months. And so this tree I harvested in May of 2023 and is now dry enough to work with. It's been sealed in wax this whole time, and it's been slowly turned down into a stable salt cellar blank. So for my salt cellars and for all my kitchenwares, I'll use all different levels of moisture. So for the spoons, they'll be the highest moisture level because it will be a little bit easier to carve into them. I do them all by hand. Whereas the turnings, I will let them get much drier so that the grain is stabilized. But then once everything that's going to be washed in your sink or used in your kitchen gets turned and made, it'll actually get reintroduced to water. So the idea is that my bowls and things that are going to be used in your sink will get reacclimated to the water. And the fact that it's air dried gives it great advantage to do so. Where I find that kiln dried lumber tends to overcompensate in terms of the grain movement.
Do you rough turn those and then let them dry for X amount of years?
These will be rough turned. These will be rough turned for about 2 or 3 times, and dried continuously along that way. Wow. So they'll be cut. Basically, I'll start with a large log. I will bisect it, cut the pith section out, and cut off the sapwood section, and then cut them into large billets. Those billets will get sealed in anchor seal, and they'll sit for about a year or 2. Then those large billets will get turned into large turned billets. And from there, they'll get sealed again in wax, and they'll sit for another year or so. And then they will get turned into these final salt cellar blanks. And the salt cellars, I actually let them sit the longest, because this is the one item that I make in my repertoire of items that never should have exposure to water. So the idea is that you want this to be a desiccant for the salt or sugar or things that you put in it, spices. You want everything to stay dry on the inside. So you tend to not want to expose this item particularly to water. So what I do is this will get down to 0% moisture or 5% or below, whereas most of my other items, I'll be able to turn them. Even the bowls, I can turn at 10 or 11% without any problems with grain movement or cracking, things like that. And of course, spoons you can carve relatively fresh, but I tend to let them get to about 15 to 12% moisture before I'll start carving them. But for the salt cellars, I like them extra dry, and that's because when you put salt in them, you'll find that it will actually keep the salt from getting caked up and clumpy. So this beautiful Zelkova wood, while it stinks up for, when you first harvest it, It's a wonderful wood, and you'll see that once I put my finish on it, I make my own finish. And once the finish goes on, it has an incredible gold color that really shines. So you guys will enjoy that. And so first, I'm going to start by squaring this blank out. And then what we do first is, the idea is that you're trying to create a like 5 to 6 inch, about 3 or 4 inch diameter blank. And you want a tenon both sides. So the idea is we're trying to create, the lid will have a tenon on this side, and the base will have a tenon on this side. And those tenons are basically going to be your starting point of where this box starts and ends. And the other side, this tenon for the lid, is going to be how we're able to chuck it onto the lathe and be able to create the actual the lip from which it can grip into the box. And that's the trickiest part of this, is not overshooting that lip, so that you can not only grain match this, but the lid will fit airtight without it being too wiggly or loose, or too tight where you can't get the lid off. So not overshooting or undershooting that lid diameter, where the lid actually will catch onto the box, is really the key tricky element of this. But I tend to start by turning it between centers. So I saved you a little bit of time on that, doing the roughing stuff. I turn it between centers. I put a tenon on one side, and I leave a little bit of this center turned here, because I find that you'll be able to get a really nice button or a finial, like a little place where you can grip your button for the lid, will be right here. So I'm going to leave some of that material on there and not quite take all of it off yet. And even if you decide not to use it, I find it's much easier to then take either like a razor saw or some sort of saw that you could take and cut it off later if you decide to do that. But I tend to work with it, and I like to incorporate just a little bit of that lid material so that I can have a nice cute little button. You can make it rounded, you can make it whatever shape you like, or you can leave it in sort of like a rough form. But I will do a nice rounded button for you guys. So I will start by squaring this off. I'm going to put this on. And I'll go to like 1600 RPM, up and down. Now grab a small skew chisel with the shaft on it. I'm going to make the tenon. And then I'll take the opportunity to smooth out some of that shear face. And that's just with a peeling cut. So that gives your lid just a little bit smoother face, so you don't have to fight with it too much later on. So we'll make the tenon a little bigger. Now we got this roughed out, nice and smooth. We got a tenon. Now we can mark it with our carving tool. Where you want the lid. So depending on how thick you want the lid, you can decide how far you want to go down. I like to do about this. So generally 25% is the max of the joint. I like to say for the lid, just so you have a little bit of room to go. Make sure the carving so it doesn't bite it. So this is our lid section. That's your lid. Set that aside for now. Now we move the tailstock back.
Want that off, or you can take it off if you want.
Actually, yeah, I think it will.
That way it's not in your way later.
Juan, what kind of lathe do you have?
I've actually got the smaller version of this. I've got the Laguna 1216.
Sorry about that.
Not a problem. It's good to have a familiar thing. All right, so
Rick
drop
doesn't
it.
like it.
Yeah, maybe drop your tool rest a little bit so that you're at just below center here. Move your angel over so you're close to center. And now you can turn the heat up a bit. You're going with your bowl gouge. Half-inch bowl gouge. And basically, when it comes to turning end grain, a lot of those fibers, since those fibers, they're facing straight out. Usually when you're approaching a bowl, the grain goes sort of in a diagonal direction because you're cutting from either end of the end grain. When you're going straight into end grain, if you try and use that same shearing cut that you would use for a bowl, you'll find that either it makes a lot of noise and that it hurts a little bit and that just will start to burn the actual grain. You tend to want to go as directly forward into end grain as you can so that you can actually cut those instead of shearing them. So rather than the scraping cut, if you were to try to approach this from like a regular bowl gouge angle, where you'd be coming in like this, you'd end up doing a lot more scraping than you would be cutting. So the idea is that you want to come in here with the angle of the bowl gouge facing directly into the grain and push hard so that you can actually make those cuts and get in there. And so we're going to start to hollow this thing out little by little. And then we'll alternate between push cuts and pull cuts. For the outer edges, once you've created a nice cup shape, you'll find that push cuts against the end grain tend to meet a little bit more resistance on the actual lip of that curve. So where it actually starts to curve in, you'll find that a pull cut, you can actually get a way more of a slicing than would be scraping. So I will start to do that, but I just wanted to talk for a second before I put this back on. And I make, usually in a week, I will make anywhere between 25 to 30 items to sell every week in my farmers markets. And when I'm doing salt cellars, in one day, I'll do about 6 to 8 of these from start to finish. And they end up not lasting through the weekend in terms of selling. So they're really popular. I haven't had anybody come back and say they didn't enjoy it. It's really a wonderful thing. And personally, aesthetically, you can go as interesting or as plain as you like. Personally, I found that when you showcase the grain the way sort of Mother Nature wanted it, I like to leave it very square like this. I'll put ripples in it. I'll put different sort of textured designs in it, depending on how the grain looks. But I think for this type of grain, this Alcova is a really beautiful tree that when people see it, they are more interested in looking at the actual grain of the wood than any sort of advanced technique that you find to be like compelling. Because most people, they'll look at those things and they won't necessarily know what they're looking at. Whereas us wood turners, like we can look at something and say, wow, that's an incredible deal of craftsmanship. When you're dealing with a lot of like the public and like you're dealing with a lot of people who wouldn't know a fine woodworker's wood turnings from something they get at Home Goods or Marshall's, you know, they wouldn't really notice the difference in craftsmanship. I think it is important to allow people to see the grain of the wood for what it is. And I think having sort of simple designs for me has paid off in my business and in my woodworking. And a lot of people are really drawn to that aesthetic that I bring, which is let the wood speak for itself and let the rest of the sort of aspects of each type of wood be showcased rather than some sort of design element. But that being said, the design of these salt cellars is as easy and as complete and fully sort of crafted as you can expect without being overdone. So we're going in with the gouge angler, going straight in. Here. Just twist it. Give it a soft grip. Center there. I'll come back. Recenter. Halloween. Now we're recentered. Okay. Just below center. You widen it out. I tend to start a little bit shallow and widen it out so that you don't overshoot your lip. And then you can use your push cut to sort of deepen it. Pull this over. There we go. As you get further into it, the deeper you get into it, the most challenging part is maintaining a center that doesn't have that dreaded hump in the middle, that sort of little bump in the bottom. So getting that while making your final passing cuts is the most challenging part. And what I tend to do is I will start with a push cut that goes from the bottom third into the center, and then I will pull it back out with a shearing cut. Well, actually, you can either tilt it up or down and take that shearing cut. If you notice, I was kind of going up a little bit, and that shearing cut will even the wall size with the center size. So I'm not quite done to the depth that I want yet, but you can do a depth check by just throwing this in here, throwing your finger up, and then putting it right up here. Now you definitely want, for the salt cellars, you want it to be deep enough to where you can fit almost your whole hand in. So we're getting there. I'm going to go maybe another 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch before I start making my final passes to make it smooth and nice. And then we'll get to sanding. And then after that, we will fit the lid to it. And then from there, we can start to finish it, and part it, and do all that good stuff. Throw this back home. So as I go in, start right from that center, and I'm just trying to pull it out. And then, as you notice, I'm sort of tilting that. It gives you a shear scraping angle, and that gives you a nice smooth finish on the inside. So you don't have to do as much sanding. You see, you get really fine shavings that come out, and they're shear scrapes. And you can kind of go back in. And lift your way up. Okay. So the quality of cut looks good. It feels relatively smooth in there, so we don't need to do too much sanding. I'm just going to round out the interior walls a little bit more. All right, we have it again. So that's your interior. You can see that.
Yeah. We have my Zoom going there.
All cleaned out. Your deck goes up to here. So you still have enough mass to give it some weight at the bottom of the item, as well as have enough space for your parting tool so you don't hit your chuck. So from there, you want to get all your primary sanding on the inside, because if you start sanding after you make the lid, you'll end up loosening your fit. So we'll start with 120 and work our way up to 400. So I just throw it on a sponge, and I turn the speed a little down. When you're grain matching a box like this too, while it's important to sand that edge lip, you don't want to go too hard on it because you'll start to round over the lip and then the grain match will be off. So you just kiss it gently, just a little bit, is enough just to smooth it over. But you don't want to go too crazy rounding it over because then the grain match will be not right. So the next side, nice and smooth. Go to 150. Then we'll go to 220. Just a little on that one. And then finish with 400. Just a little. Get the outside. Now that looks nice and pretty. The inside feels good. So most people, if you were making an open face salt cellar, you could just part it off like this, give it a bit of hand sanding and call it a day. But since we are grain matching the lid to it, we're going to take this off without removing the tenon. So we take this off, set this aside, stays there for now, and then we add our lid. So that little extra button can go right in there and usually fits right in. And the jaws will grab the tenon. All right. So now's the tricky part. You don't want to overshoot this diameter. This is your finished diameter, and you want to very carefully match it to this here. So while this is a little bit thinner on the outside now, you can kind of just eyeball it. You've got about 1/4 of an inch to go in, but you really want to take it less than a millimeter at a time, very, very fine shaving. So what I do is I call the creep method, where you can either use a parting tool. I find the parting tool is much more aggressive than the skew chisel. So I will start with the skew chisel, But in order, so when you're making the outer tenons, you kind of lead with that sharp side, because I do what's called a laser grind. Have you ever heard of that? Like an angled skew chisel grind. And so with this style of angled grind, you have these two sides. You've got the pointy side, I call it the pointy side, and it's still pointy, but the shorter side, I guess you'd call it. The shorter side is great for matching these lids because it gives you just a slight angle inward to where you can creep to the diameter of this by the micrometer without overshooting it. And that's really the key. From an airtight fit to either a too tight where it doesn't fit, or when the winter comes or summertime comes and the moisture in the air swells it to where you can't open it, and as well as overshooting it where the lid will just kind of jiggle on it and it doesn't feel as crafty. So we're going to take it slow. We'll put this over here now. And you want your tool rest height back to that sort of higher roughing size. So a little bit higher than you'd think. Oopsie. Because you'll get a really nice peeling cut with the skew chisel if you're just a little bit higher than you would for like your average roughing gouge. Because it gives you a much sheerer angle on the top third of the wood here. So we're going to use the short side of the skew chisel, and we will start to make a peeling cut. We've got about a 1/4 inch to go, so we know we can do a little bit of cutting. But once we get to those final stages, you got to be super careful because you can't really fix it if you overshoot it. And you don't want to go more than 1/8 of an inch wide. So you've got 1/8 of an inch cut here. So you're getting nice peeling cuts. Those are no more than like the width of a human hair, or maybe even a lot less than that. And you can sort of start like that, and just to sort of gauge your confidence about fitting the lid, you can just sort of match it up. So you still got plenty of room. You'll start to feel it sort of, and if you look on the, can we do the little camera a little on the angle here?
Not really.
It's all right.
Zoom out.
So if you kind of look at the angle on here, it dips downward a little bit. What that does is it gives you an entry cut into the diameter of the actual salt cellar. So as you're making these cuts slowly but surely, you'll have a peak into the diameter. And when you reach that sort of part where you can start to feel the lid fitting into it, then you will shear it flat. So right now it's pointed slightly downward like this. Whereas when we make those final cuts, we're going to shear it off and make it a straight cut so that the lid fits straight on without it having any sort of shear dip to it. So we're going to keep going. And we know we're getting closer. And eventually, once you reach close to it, you'll only want to take very, very short passes. So we're taking the majority of the bulk of that material. I mean, I would call it bulk, but like you get what I'm saying. It's kind of the majority of the material at this time. And when we get to it, we'll then clean up the interior of the lid. So the interior of the lid, this will be the only point where it's actually chucked up to where you can actually access it. So at this point, once we reach the diameter, we'll then clean up the interior of the lid. And then from there, we jam chuck it to the outside, in which case we will form the outside. All right, getting closer. We're approaching that peak. So it's just starting to sort of get close to where it'll start to fit inside. So we will keep going, but we're going to go a little bit less. And try to keep the lip on this side. With the skew chisel, you want it to be as straight as you can. So make those peeling cuts nice and straight so that the lid can actually line up really nice with the grain. Let's see. Get closer. Almost there. Not quite. Take some more. Almost, a little closer, so we'll take a little bit less. See, we've just breached that lip. So it doesn't quite fit on totally, but it fits on. So what you have is now that starting point of where the diameter is now airtight. So you're at that point now. Instead of continuing to remove more complete material, we're going to shear that angle back. So that shear angle that's sort of pointing down like this, we're just going to shear it flat. So now we flip the skew chisel around from that short side to the pointy side, and we're just going to make a backwards cut to shear that angle back against here. Trying to remove as little material as you can just to really seal that fit. So now this is tight fitting, so we can remove just a tiny bit more material, and I mean tiny bit of material. And that should give us a nice fit, right, just like that. There's no movement in the wood, and it's tight enough to where it turns, because every year the humidity in everyone's houses changes. You want it to be on there without any wiggle room, so there's no wiggling back and forth, but it also has enough room to where the lid can be removed easily. So as the home humidity adjusts for temperature and things like that, it doesn't seal the lid. So now that the diameter of the lid is made, we'll go back to the coal gouge, and we will clean up this interior here. So you can make it a dome shape, which I like to do a lot. We're going to go at a bit of an angle here, and we'll drop the tool rest down a bit. To just below center again. And from here, you can just make nice passes like this. Move this like that. What you want to do is try to avoid this edge as much as possible, because we have that diameter set. Basically, you just want to be very gentle with that. And you're cleaning up this inside, just avoid that lip from bringing that diameter down anymore. So we're just going to clean this up a little bit. And because it's end grain, more lighter passes will give you a better quality cut. Trying to take too aggressive a cut will tear the end grain really aggressively, so you'll find you'll get a lot of torn grain marks. So light passes, even if it takes you an extra second, will give you a much nicer quality cut. So from there, you can just give it a little sandpaper real quick. Again, trying to avoid that lip. Just try to get the inside of there. So that's 120, 150. 220. 220. And then 400. So, okay, the interior is now ready. Feels nice and smooth. It's really pretty. It fits really nicely on this lid. And if you just twist it around a little bit, you can see where the grain matches. Where is that? There's something there it is. So you can see through here, the grain is now matched up. It matches up pretty nicely. When you have woods that have really strong lines to them, grain match boxes look really, really nice because it has that sort of continuity. Whereas certain grained woods like ash and oak with like open grain pores, it's harder to really see the grain match, or for at least for customers. For a trained eye, obviously, you guys could tell. But for these sort of more dominantly placed grain striations, you can find that people will gravitate towards them very well. So now the lid is not quite done, but the inside and the lid fit is done. So we get our chuck key, take this off, and so now you will need your live center again. So put your tailstock back up. This. We're going to put this back in the chuck. Make sure it's centered so it doesn't throw off the whole thing. So that's on there. We're going to bring this back up the tool rest, back up to roughing height. But we're going to stay with the bowl gouge. Bring this back up. Now we're going to fit the lid on, and then we're going to jam chuck it with your live center. And you want to be careful to not over tighten it because that can cause it to burn on the inside. So you want it to be snug, but not too tight. So you screw that on. Now we're on. So we'll put this back on. So you can use any of these to remove the bulk of your material, roughing gouge, skew chisel, or bowl gouge. We'll go with the skew chisel because it has a really nice peeling cut to the light. And we're going to just slowly take down some material to create a button or a handle. So we're going to start with the tenon. Bring this a little closer. And you only want to cut a third of the material of the width of your gouge. So if you have a really wide gouge, you can take a lot of material off. But for smaller gouges, you want to know about a third of your gouge's width worth of material removed before your cut quality suffers. And while it's out of balance right now on this lid portion, as we clean it up, it will move into balance. So don't worry about it too much at this point, because we're still removing material. It's going to all come into balance quickly. But now we're just creating a button, so we can have something to work with. just a little bit more here. And for your final cut, that will end up being the top portion of your lip. Just take it real slow and try to make it as much of a finishing cut as you can, so that you don't have to go back and worry about too much torn grain on the top face of your lid. So very gentle. Now with the butter gouge, you can round these corners. Just go around. Don't go past. You don't want to cut too much on the top face because you just made that really nice finishing cut with your Q-tip. So just focus on the corners and try to keep it so that we're just working on one section of the lid at a time. And it just improves your quality of finish. And as you're rounding these corners, you'll begin to see it come into balance. Right now, the only part that's out of balance on this lid is just this right here. And so watch, as I'm rounding this last corner, we'll just go all the way down. And now the lid is coming into balance. And we're shearing cut. And another shearing cut on the other one. And now balance on that, but we're going to keep making that button over here. You can lower the tool rest a bit. Good. So I just line up the angle of the gouge to ride along the bevel of the gouge to ride the shear face. So you get a nice cut going right into the button. And just turn it up.
So the part where you will mark it to be parted off, you don't want to go all the way through it because it's only on the live center. It has no way of holding on. So it could ruin the piece if you're trying to turn it all the way through. So I just cut all the way up to the live center and then use the hand tool to remove the final piece. So that is the lid is now carved, in which case we can now finish sand the outside and blend the sanding into the actual box. And then from there, we just cut the box off and we're ready to finish. So we'll go to next one. You can kind of see this will be the bucket. It's got a cool little flare to it that I like. And we'll have going. Mm-hmm. 150. To plant. And the final sand is 400. So now we take the lid out. And we'll finish this top portion by hand. So this is done. And now we will part this off. So let's cut the bit. And a nice clean part. And when I part, I like to go at a bit of an angle so that when it sits, it doesn't have any rock to it and will sit nice and flat. And keep my hand somewhere good. You can turn it up to about 1600. But then halfway through the part, I'll turn it down to 900 so that I can actually grab it with my right hand and finish the cut with my left hand. Some people choose to go all the way with one hand. But I like to be able to have the leverage to grab it from one side, because I've had plenty of them part too quickly and fly across the room and end up breaking. We don't want that. And just rounding that thread a bit. So put down there, I'm about more than halfway. It starts to wobble a bit. That's when you turn it down. Turn it down to 900, or at least below 1,000. So we're at 907. And you can grab it with your finger on your left hand and slowly just follow that finishing cut. So all you have is just a little bit of nub to sand off. So after that, with just a little bit of handwork now, you've got a really nice solid fit, no wobble. So you've got no wobbling happening. Then you've got a nice grain match on there. It's parted off. But from here, we'll take a little bit of a, do you have a little hacksaw or something?
Yeah.
And I can even take this with the gouge. And that little nut can come off. Usually I would grab my spoon carving gouges, but okay. Great. Perfect. Thank you. Nice sharp stuff in here. There's that lid. And I'll just move that around. Just a quick little hand operation here. Didn't bring your chainsaw for that? Say that again? Didn't bring your chainsaw for that? I didn't. No, unfortunately. I would go to the bandsaw, or sometimes even just the belt sander for things like this. I'll just give it a quick little pop on the belt sander. But this is, when I first started doing it, I didn't have all these tools. I learned wood turning for over 5 years. I worked with just a Harbor Freight pen lathe, and I still use these Harbor Freight chisels that I, just never. I keep them sharp and they cut right. And as long as you know how to cut, you don't really need the fanciest of everything. But now that I've upgraded to my nice Laguna lathe, it's a lot easier. But, a lot of people will ask me, like, how do I get into this? How do I do that? And there's so many things I need or all these different things. And if you want to turn and you want to learn how to turn, there's ways to do it where you don't need a whole lot of stuff. And I've always been a firm believer of experience beats equipment any day.
So what do you have for a sharpening system?
What do I have? I've got just a 6-inch grinder with a one-way Wolverine grinder system. You know what that is? It's like the little holder, the Wolverine. And it's just on my little 6-inch bench grinder. And I spent the day today just sharpening everything up before I came here. Come on. It's good. It's so good. Okay. Now we can just take some sandpaper, fold it up. 150. This one. I don't know how y'all feel. Have used these ones, these Diablo guys? I find that they work really aggressively for like the first like 2 uses, and then they're completely worthless.
Right.
What the box says they're supposed to last like 50 times longer.
Yeah.
And really they
Longer
last
than
half as long, and they're twice as expensive. And they don't sell mixed packs of any sandpaper anymore, which drives me crazy. It's like you have to buy each individual pack is now $35.
Good paper goes a long way.
Right? Exactly. And then you can just finish it up with some 400. Just a little bit of this. And just kind of give it with the sponge. Wrap it around the sponge to do some final detail work.
That one almost looks like a cloth. Wooden cloth.
It's like it's a net called a sand net. So it's supposed to be the future of sandpaper, but it tends to be not nearly as effective as just good old sandpaper.
The idea that the dust would go through the.
Right, that's what they say. But if let's say you're working with a wood that has even the slightest bit of pitch in it, alder drive you crazy with the sandpaper, pine, things like that. It just gets clogged up in an instant. And or anything that has any waxy residue in it, like anything that if you try to even touch up a finished piece that has a bit of like finished wax on it, it's completely worthless to use these. But on a raw piece of wood, it works just as nice. So we're just touching it up, giving it, because on the lathe when you're sanding, even the best of sanders, they're going to get some of those circular lines. So you just want to go back and forth and move in opposite directions so that you cancel out some of those circular lines. So that lid's done. And on here, you go. This is 120. So for the bottom, we did a good job with the part, except for just a little nub at the bottom. So we'll just give it a little once over. And I just break the burr slightly. You don't want to go too crazy. Because if you over sand this lip, when it sits down, it will either start to wobble or it doesn't look flush with the table. So you want it to look, at least my style, is I want it to look very flush with whatever surface it's sitting on. So some people like that sort of invisible rise look. I prefer it to look much more flush. So 120. 150. And we've already done the outside, so we're not going to do too much with these lower grits. Just the bottom. $220. Just break that burr just a little bit so it doesn't get splintery. And once you're at 220, it's okay to once over the outside, but just take light passes and go in circular motions so that you're going to break those circular sanding lines. Break the circular lines, and then when you finish, when you apply the finish, it's just going to be really shimmery and really bright. And wait till you see how gold this Zelkova gets. So break those lines, finish with 400. All over it. Finish the bottom. Go in opposite directions. Just like if you're sanding on the lathe when you're doing a bowl, You turn it in reverse, so you break up that torn grain going the opposite way. All right, you can get the inside. Again, very careful on this lip, because this lip controls how the lid fits. So just be careful not to do too much on that lip. All right, and so there it is. There's that grain match. There we go. Let's see. There we go. Nice grain match. And now I'm going to apply the finish. And so this finish took me a number of years to formulate. I just call it my board butter. But I sell a ton of this, and I definitely love to share it with y'all guys too at some point. But I source it with 4 distinct ingredients that are designed to nourish the wood, be entirely food safe, as well as actually seal the pores of bacteria. So in terms of waxes, everybody knows beeswax, mineral oil, that's what everybody uses. But beeswax is known as a non-drying wax. So basically, beeswax, in order for bees to actually grip onto the wax during the wintertime, the wax stays in a malleable or tacky state. While it does seal wood off and it does protect wood, it doesn't leave the best particular finish. So that's why you use polymers and polymerized things like polyurethane and things like that, because it actually dries to a hard state. Even tung oil. Tung oil is a polymerized oil, so it actually will harden into a solid state after it's had time to cure. So what you do is with a wax like beeswax, because we want it to be food safe, while tung oil is food safe depending on where you source it from, it does require a drying time, and it does have solvents added to it, which aren't necessarily what people are looking to use right when they're trying to make dinner. So you'll find that I use a combination of beeswax that I source from a master beekeeper in Tiverton, who's like, she wins competitions for her bees. She just takes them extraordinarily seriously. So she retains a really, really pure wax that's got very, very low levels of impurities, but is still in a highly organic state. It hasn't been filtered or overly processed. So it's extremely organic. Then what I do is I will actually polymerize that wax with another hardened drying wax. So the other dry wax I use is carnauba wax. There's grades of carnauba wax. So there's the carnauba wax you're used to using on your car for car polish. That's different tiered. It's a different purity level. This is food and cosmetic grade called T1, and it's the purest. That's what you would use on like your hard candies, like M&Ms and things, as they use for like the outer coating. And basically, carnauba wax is the world's hardest dry wax. And the idea is that when you combine a non-drying wax with a drying wax, you get a polymerized dry wax. So you get all the benefits of beeswax while you get the conditioned state of carnauba wax. But carnauba wax on its own is not spreadable. It's dry. It's like a completely, almost like shellac flakes. It's extremely hard to work with without being processed in some way. So then I add vitamin E oil, which in terms of the wood preservation, it actually stops the degradation of wood. So you'll find that in your really colorful pieces, your resin pieces, and like your really sort of burly type of pieces, over time, either the patina will cause the color or in some way lose its color, depending on the oxygen, moisture in the air and things like that. But the vitamin E oil will actually preserve its finished state. So it keeps the colors vibrant, keeps it looking good. And then, of course, mineral oil, which everybody knows, is what really nourishes deep into the core of the wood, being that it's a liquid, it's an oil, it penetrates into those wood fibers, and it stops water from getting in, and it stops things like that. So this one I designed to ward off bacteria, odors, stains, and water damage, because the waxes are really the key to actually stopping the pores from absorbing anything. So if you're not closing up your pores, especially with open grain pore structured woods like oak and ash, things like that, and sycamore, things that have really large grain pore sizes, without closing those pores, you'll find that those woods will deteriorate faster because food particles, soap, water, things like that can just have more of a highway to travel and degrade the wood. So Even though Zelkova is extraordinarily tight grained, it has almost no exposed grain pores. It's extremely tight structure. This goes on just like a salve, so you kind of just scratch the surface to kind of turn into like a creamy balm. And then I like to start on the ends, because the ends is where it's most thirsty, and that's where it's going to pull in the most moisture. So you just kind of massage it in, and you can sort of instantly see it transform. So you get some more as you rub it on, and that color just pops like that. Beautiful Zelkova. And I will let this sit. Only needs about 5 minutes. But a lot of times for my projects that I'm going to be selling, I will let this sit on for maybe an hour or so in a warm room to let the heat sort of allow the oils to penetrate a little deeper. And make sure you get all this, because this is end grain right here on this lip, so it'll end up drinking a little bit more. So I take a little extra and just right on that lip there. And then what I do for this, to make sure that that lip, because this is your most fragile portion of this piece, where as you use it over the years, because all my material, everything that I make, I want you to be able to use it every day and be able to keep it in your kitchen and have it for a lifetime. So this portion right here is the most vulnerable. So a little extra oil is great on there. And then to lube up the seam, I'll just throw on the dry lid and lubricate it like that. So it will actually create friction, and that friction will force some of that oil deeper into the wood itself. So we'll create some friction here with this. So not only does that lubricate the joint where it sits, but it also gives it a little bit more of a penetrating action as you create some friction there. And then we'll finish the interior of the lid. And do you have like a paper towel or something you could just wipe this off with, and then we pass it around? So let's thank you so much. So we rubbed it in. Let it sit for a second. Just take this. And you can just wipe off the excess. And so with the wax formula that I have, especially with these salt cellars, they're designed to be zero maintenance. So the idea is that I tell people they'll only need to reapply some of this wax maybe once a year, maybe before the winter time. As the humidity changes in your house, you'll find that no wood is impervious to, humidity damage and things like that. So I tell people once a year to just give it a little bit of love, and that should keep it looking good. But for most of my other utensils, of course, these aren't designed to be submerged underwater regularly, like your spoons or your bowls and things like that. This conditioner usually lasts about like 7 to 8 washes before you want to reapply it. That's if you're like scrubbing really good with soap and all that. But I wanted to design kitchenwares that were as beautiful as they were functional. And I think that with some of these items that I sell regularly, people have really resonated with the idea that the wood is what is supposed to be most beautiful about all these things, and not necessarily too much of design elements. Because there's a lot of extremely talented woodworkers out there that I know. John Dunn Woodworking, he's been making cutting boards for 35 years, and he makes really impressive designs, and he makes all different exotic woods and incredible patterns that I absolutely love. But I've had customers of mine actually bring his cutting boards back to me because they've delaminated and they started falling apart. So I've actually had to do repairs on cutting boards from other cutting board makers because of some of the wood processing elements that are unique to kitchenwares as opposed to furniture makers. Because when you're using furniture lumber and things like cutting boards, that wood has been dried in a kiln to the point where as soon as that wood touches water, the wood can't help but take in water and change shape. The grain moves, it warps. that starts to delaminate. And when you process lumber the way I do, you'll find that when you make cutting boards out of them, they have a natural osmotic relationship to water that works much better. So while it takes a lot more time and I have to charge more money for it, you find that you only have to buy it once. So here we go, finished. So you definitely just feel it and just get a feel for that.
What do you charge for a little salt cellar like that?
For salt cellars like that, I get $75 right there.
Seems like a lot of work.
Yeah,
Well, with the drying process.
the process.
and,
I've been
you know,
since I've been doing
years
it.
and
Yeah,
years.
I've been processing my own lumber for 11 years, and it all actually started because, so I was really sort of getting into woodworking and starting to carve spoons and just learning some of the basic stuff. And what happened was, on a storm back in 2015, lightning struck my backyard, and this 50-foot spalted maple tree that was like, you've seen spalted maple before, and it can have a lot of character to it. This one had blues and grays and oranges and just incredible color that I was not going to like allow that to just become firewood or whatever. So I bought a $50 home light chainsaw from Home Depot, and I just started going at it. And you know, I was in my mid-20s at that point, and sort of just trying to explore like what I wanted to do. And I wasn't doing this professionally. Now this is my full-time job, and I do woodworking every day, and it sort of consumed me after that. But it all started because lightning struck a maple tree in my backyard, and it fell. It was nearly destroyed my neighbor's house, and he was like, "Juan, you want this tree?" And he's like, "I don't have anything to cut it with." And he's like, "Oh, I know you do the spoon carving thing, so just figure out a way to get it out of here." And I definitely like should not have been in charge of getting this tree to fall down because I nearly killed myself. Falling a tree is definitely not something I recommend people do. You gotta know what you're doing because it's extremely dangerous, and it's way heavier than it looks. Even if it's a smaller tree, it's still extremely heavy. So
I have a cherry tree.
yeah, oh yes, it's definitely something
We gotta send Ray away though.
yes, we do. You gotta definitely respect your tools and know what you're doing, and definitely learn how to look at a tree and the way it's falling and where it's leaning. But I digress. The journey that I took to make all these things really kind of pushed me in. I was working construction, and I was building decks and doing stone patios, and sort of had the spoon carving as a side project. And so I was sort of manual labor at a certain point in my life. And the contractor that I was working for actually ended up going to prison because he beat up his wife.
Perfect.
Rhode Island story, if you've ever heard it, for sure. But at that moment, I had just moved into my new apartment that I live in Pawtucket now, and my car had just blown up on the highway. My radiator blew up on the highway. I was jobless, carless, and about a week away from being homeless. And I got a call from a farmer's market out of the cold blue sky that just said, "Hey, have you ever done this before?" And I said, "I have no choice, but yeah, sign me up." And he was like, "I didn't have any tax paperwork done." And he's like, "Don't worry about it. Just come. We want to see what you got." And I brought those wine crates, those wine boxes, and I had one of those, and it was filled with spoons that I had carved over like the last 5 years, maybe 60 or 50 or 60 spoons that I had carved. And I was giving them out as Christmas gifts to friends and family and stuff. And every now and then someone would call me and be like, "Hey, my friend wanted to know if you'd carve them a spoon or something." And that very first day, I was charging only $30 for my largest spoons, and I sold over $1,000 worth of spoons. Sold almost all my spoons in one day. I was in tears, talking to the director of the market, saying like, "This just saved my life." And he's like, "Well, you better get to work." And that was it. That was the journey that started this whole spoon and board thing. And I kind of just ran with it, and now I've upgraded my lathe. Like before, I used to have that little tiny Harbor Freight pen lathe, and now I bought the Laguna, and now I'm upgrading my other tools and upgrading my
Let
table
us know
saws
when
and-
you're ready for this one.
Oh, this one is lovely. See, what I like about the one that I have, it's got, so it has the outboard side. So this one,
Yeah.
Can you set up an outboard on this?
Yeah.
You have to move the motor.
That slides.
Down that way.
Oh, I see the headstock moves. That's cool.
Yeah.
But I also got the bed extension. So it's short. It runs on a 110
Right.
breaker,
Yeah.
and it goes up to 36 inches when I put the bed extension and the
Yeah,
outboard.
We've got the beds right there.
Nice. And so, I can, on my 1216, I can do up to 16-inch poles, and I just did one. Did you see it the other
Did
day?
you sell
I didn't sell it, but it is beautiful, and it is extremely pain in the ass to make really large bowls. You guys probably already know.
Well, the motor on that is the same as that, and it's not strong enough to turn that.
It is.
16-inch pole.
It's tough. It's
Right.
tough.
It's very slow.
And you take very short passes, and you have to be super careful during the roughing stage. And then I added extra weights to the bed, and just sort of try and bolt it down. But I like that also. The one I have has the gouge stand at the bottom, and it's on wheels, so I can kind of move it around and do all that. But this one has this over here, which is nice. But yeah. So thank you guys
Cool.
for everything. I hope you guys liked it.
Yeah,
Pretty
appreciate you
cool
coming
demo.
by. Very
Yay. I'm gonna leave you guys this just to kind of have it. So you guys can have it.
Yeah, no, take it with you, sell it.
No, that's for y'all.
All right, then
So you
we'll,
guys can hang on to it or put candy in it or something.
we'll put it in our upcoming show. Then.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Which one? The fine furniture one?
The next one.
Why don't you use spindle gouges?
So spindle gouges, I have them. I tend to actually, so I have my spindle gouge, and a lot of times, if I'm making really more detailed, ornate sort of finial styles at the end, I'll use my spindle gouge, my smaller spindle gouge. I do use them. I just didn't bring them today. I figured today would be a little bit more of a bare bones type of thing. And to show people too that like you can use just a bowl gouge and you can get pretty much everything done. The bowl gouge can do pretty much anything. And even at a 1/2 inch size, you can get pretty close in terms of clearances on something like this. But I do use spindle gouges. I want to get a really nice, one of those nice lower bevel detail gouges to make like some more fancy stuff, but I don't have one yet. But I do use spindle gouges. Just not today.
Very good.
Thank
There you
you.
go.
All right.
All right.
Yay, thank you.
You gotta sign that?
I can. If you have something, I can.
I have to sign it.
This was a recent upgrade too, this Sorbet Gold Gouge. It's really great for roughing, and it holds an edge really well. So I recommend this one.
Sorbies are okay.
Yeah.
This one is good. I found the gold hardened the outside to where it holds an edge much better than my other roughing gouges that I've had. Because I've had the Crown one, and I've had the cheap one, obviously the cheap Harbor Freight one. But this one I found was really good. Thank you.
All right, Jane, you're up.
Yay.
We're gonna take a slight break.
Sure.
I don't know. Does anybody need a break, or do we keep going? Or
Keep going.
8:30, keep going.
John. Small plastic thing. Oh, great.
Yeah.
One person.
That happens.
Is anybody on Zoom?
Oh, I don't know. I can't tell. This will be on Zoom, just so you know, forever.
That's awesome.
Forever. If you go to our Ocean Woodturners and click on the live link, you'll see that video will be on there
That's
forever.
awesome. Love it.
All right.
Alright, so I know we don't have to use the video.
Nope, just them.
Everybody's over here. All right, treasury report, let's see, checking has $292.59. We have another CD with 4,000 in it. We made $250 on the last CD.
Yay.
I'll take that.
Nice.
All right, and if you're a member, please pay your dues.
Yeah.
There's a few of us that have it.
Don't worry about that one. We got it.
Sure.
Yeah,
we
let it
got
rip.
We take care of it. We take care of my kid.
I'm gonna go help her out.
And you and I are the only ones that can hook up that truck really quick. My husband can't do it.
Oh my gosh.
He yells too much. All right, elves for elders, that's the one we're going to, we're gonna make our own,
Yeah. So what, we were talking about shows at the last couple of meetings before the break. I hooked up with a girl at the Warwick Mall, Debbie Woods. She does a lot of shows. So the Warwick Mall has it's called Elves for Elders, and they do the Christmas tree with all sorts of gifts on it, and you go there, buy a gift, and donate it. So what we're looking to do is, there's a show December 13th. It is a Sunday. It's at the Crown Plaza. We will have a free booth, and what we'd like to do is sell donated ornaments of any nature. Ornaments, Christmas trees, snowmen, small $15, $20 items. So if everybody could make one or two of them, you know, if we had, 10 or 15 of them, 20 of them, whatever, then we'll donate that money to that. She'll pick the gifts off the tree, bing, bang, boom. So we will need volunteers to man the booth. It is a Sunday. It's only like, I believe, 10 to 3. It's only 6 hours. Not bad at all. December 13th. It's at the Crown Plaza.
No, I'm good.
So,
You're right here?
as we get going, if you've got plenty of time to make a couple of ornaments.
Thank you. Drive safely.
Make a couple ornaments or something that we can, donate, sell off, etc. I'll speed this up a little bit. The next show is Fine Furnishing. That's November
Well, why don't
7th
you
and
just
8th.
take my job away?
I'm reading the thing because it's 8:30. So the Fine Furnishing is the 7th and 8th. It's only Saturday and Sunday this year, no Friday night. We do a combined booth with the Woodworkers Guilds. We'll bring the lathe down, do some turning. We do need some high-end pieces for that show to display. You can't sell them, but you can display them. They do sell at the end of the show, but that's a different. We'll talk about that later. But so we'll need pieces and
Anything else you want to add to that?
Can our pieces be a little bit more upfront? Last year they were.
yeah. So we tucked everything into the corner because the woodworkers had such a big display. I have talked to them about that. We can bring our own table, set everything up. That's not a problem. Last year they needed the space. I said, the lathes make so much of a mess that you really can't put a lot of stuff there. I mean, you can put a bunch, but the lathe does make a mess. So. But yes, we will address that.
It was funny, I can't remember where I saw it the other day. They have like an enclosure.
Yeah.
It's like a dome that you go in and do it. You see that?
The cone of silence?
Because they were using them outside for something when COVID was around.
Oh yes, I know what you're talking about.
I mean, it wasn't huge, but it was just like,
Those igloos?
yeah, something like an igloo. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they had another one that was more squared off and triangular.
But we can set the booth up. I will make sure of that.
Any other new business? Trying to think, I was telling Rick that maybe we can, the next meeting, we'll do what I did over my summer vacation. You can either bring in a piece that you messed up, because I did quite a few of those this year,
Designer for
or bring something to like. I mean, I have a problem with my things breaking off. Was this his or ours?
That's us. Yeah, that's us. Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
But it's just an idea, just to bring something different, other than just doing a demo.
Yeah.
Okay, so no other business. Anybody have anything to say?
Did we talk about the video?
Oh yeah, video. What'd you find out?
Oh wow.
You were supposed to find out about video through your son-in-law.
Oh yeah, we didn't get that far.
No,
yet.
so Peter and I were talking is maybe we can go to the like his high school or a high school and see if one of the kids can.
Yeah,
Do
if
that.
anybody
It's
has
free.
a connection where the students are taking that type of
Class.
class and or even if they're advanced, absolutely. You know, anybody that knows anything about anything. I've seen so many different versions of this. Roland's seen them, and they're out there. They're readily available. They have them. We just need to know how to hook it up, what to buy, and who's going to turn the button on. That's it.
Check on your end, I will. And, you know,
Any
teachers are back in
vocational
school
tech-
setting up for the new year, so.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll check out Foster.
Yeah, I didn't do anything with this over the summer.
That's all right.
Didn't
You've
do
been
anything.
camping.
Yeah, camping, riding. I
Camping. Oh, yeah.
ain't got time for that.
CNU's setup's pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I have
But
not.
they can zoom in, they have multiple cameras set up, they can switch cameras, they can do overheads, they can do sideways, all different things.
mean,
Yeah, Glenn Lucas had a really good setup.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's expensive.
Well, what's expensive?
I don't know.
Because we
It
have
wasn't,
a-
it wasn't,
But we don't have enough members here to run it.
Well, that's the reason that I'm
Because
stuck
it
here
takes
is
a lot.
you could buy $5,000 worth of video equipment
But
and
you're
nobody
helping to
knows
run
where
it.
the on button is.
yeah, that's it.
That's my fear. If you leave it up to me, I'm the guy who doesn't know where the on button is. So, you know, that's, if somebody, you know, wanted to come in and say, hey, buy this and this and this, and this is how you set it up. I mean, we
Glenn
have.
Lucas had a
the-
nice one. All he did is had an arm hooked up to the wall and he just moved it around and he had, I think he had something near him where you can like zoom in.
Yeah, just
It
a
was very
flip
simple
box.
for him to
Right.
work, which was pretty cool. And you will see that when you go. He's
Are you going to see Glenn?
June,
Good for you.
next year.
next June.
Good for you.
You're gonna have a good time.
Good.
She cooks good. She cooks really well too.
He cooks.
She's very.
Well, his
sweet.
wife.
We had a Zoom meeting with her because we needed some information. She's very.
Very nice. Very nice woman. All right, show and tell. Who wants to go first?
At least you're sitting right there. Keep in mind the camera's right here.
All right.
Let me go by you.
Yes, we brought up the subject of an ornament. This one has a little secret inside. Oh, look at that. So a little $2.50 string of LED lights with a little battery in it from our Hobby Lobby. This one can be donated to the cause for the charity. It's a little heavy, but other than that.
How big is the,
Big
is
string.
that a string of lights? Is that a string of lights in there?
Yeah,
Because I have something that you might like that they're only about this big. And you just turn it on, throw it in, that's it.
yeah, I've been looking for various things. I found this.
If I remember, I'll bring a couple in for
It's
you.
$2.50.
I got a bag of these things.
I thought somebody may want to use one of those little electric tea lights. They put it upside down.
Yeah, I was looking for stuff like that. The reason why I went with this is because it's got like 20 LEDs on it. So it gets a lot of light. Because I didn't know how well it was going to shine through the epoxy. And in some places it doesn't, as well as I'd like it to. And I used a rod of guide bushing for, this was worn out, it wore way through. And I had two of these, so. It works great.
So what are the black, what, is it glass or plastic? What are those?
Epoxy.
Huh?
Epoxy.
Epoxy.
What you do is you take the blank and you drill a hole almost all the way through. And you fill it with, like, say, the red epoxy. When that cures up, you flip it 90 degrees. You drill that one almost all the way through. You fill it up with the green epoxy. And then turn it down.
Okay,
And then both sides come out.
cool.
So, you know,
Very nice.
and then hollow it out a little bit. It's got a little bit too much weight to it. I didn't want to go crazy hollowing out. I was afraid it was going to destroy the epoxy.
You got something over there?
So this is in keeping with my Berlin epoxy theme that I've been running. I did a
salt cellar for my son out of this, and then he decided he wanted the mortar and pestle, which I brought the last time,
Right.
and that was the same color. Then he decided he wanted steak boards. So these are to eat steak on, you catch the juice and the groove here and stuff. So this is, I think I just put a little bit of mineral oil on this, really nothing. I'm expecting this is gonna be all cut up and hacked up and everything else, but not this side. So these are just slices of burl that I had, that I put into a 14-inch silicone mold, filled it with this green epoxy, put it in the pressure pot. I was telling somebody, I was telling I bought a 5-gallon pressure pot, thought it'd be big enough for anything I'd ever want. And then all of a sudden I wanted to do this, so I had to go get a 10-gallon. So now I got a huge investment in pressure pots. But anyway, yeah, so I got 4 of these, the same theme as the mortar and pestle last time, maple on one side, and this wasn't appropriate for cutting steak on, so this side will get all marred up and then.
So are you cutting those burls like, almost like a veneer, or how?
No, they were cutting them about 1.25 inches thick.
Oh, really?
On the
Okay.
band side, yeah. These
And
started
then
out,
what's the
these
bo- and
started
then
out
what's the
probably
bottom?
1.5 inches thick. And then I had to smooth off one side and hog it out for the maple and then glue the maple, and then I turned around, put it in a set of cold
gotcha.
jars, and then turned it the other side down to the point it was about 3/4.
So you hollow that a little, enough to get the maple in it.
The maple's about a 1/2 inch thick.
Okay.
So I had to hog out the 1/2 inch while it was still 1.25 inches thick. Otherwise, it probably would have shattered on it or something.
Okay.
So I cut it down a 1/2 inch deep, glued the maple, and then flipped it over and then thinned it out.
Ah,
on the
okay.
back.
We're gonna have to get some of that stuff that Juan had made.
Yeah, I know, that was nice stuff. And I figured I had some stuff around, so I'm making them matching steak knives too. So these are just the Rockwell knife blanks. It's actually a lot more work for this than I thought it was. I finished these 4 things, but I've only done 2 of the knives so far. I still got 2 more knives to do, so it's gonna be a full set.
Look at them, Ross.
Your next door neighbor is a knife
Look
maker.
at that thing over there.
The knife itself.
He makes yeah.
I'm getting back into it. I'm working on this. It's not as deep as I would like it because the tenon broke off the end and I couldn't reattach it to be able to do anything. So it's as deep as it is. It's hawthorn, which a friend of mine had cut down a hawthorn in his yard, and it's like, okay, but there's some significant cracks in it. And it's like, I don't know if I can go any deeper. But I'm sure Roland would say, you gotta go deeper.
You better go deeper.
So,
Thinner.
Put another tenon on and go again.
yeah, well, yeah,
Is it big enough to put another tenon on?
there's probably a 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch. Oh, well, it's nice like it is.
But you
And
can
we're
put
just
a,
happy you did
you can put a
something.
sacrificial tenon on.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
you don't have to.
glue it.
Cool.
It's just to know you're turning again.
Yes. I'll make it stand up, right?
Just spindle turning. Small burl, just part of it was burl. So it had bug holes or whatever in it. So I just did it with some epoxy with color in it. And it is hollow. Not that great, but it's hollow. I can't get my finger in there to feel how smooth it is, but it isn't that smooth. And this is actually maple, and it was dyed with trans tint dye, black. And this was finished with good stuff, but I wanted a little shinier. So I hit it with lacquer, spray lacquer. Some shine. The good stuff is really nice.
The Renaissance wax over the good stuff is nice.
Really?
Yeah,
Or should that bring out a shine
Yeah,
too?
and then it makes it feel really silky.
I'll have to try that.
It's me processing more wood that I get from 2 blocks away from my house. The city keeps coming and cutting down maple trees.
So they're right here with the chainsaws and walk around the block. Just, that's my birthday bowl. I made a bowl on my birthday. I've been playing around with shapes and undercut ribs. A little sloping inward. The undercut rib is a little tricky to get into, to get it smooth, especially on the end grain. And a negative rake, easy wood tool scraper, a tiny little disc, does the trick. And then maple's pretty plain, so I decided to play around with some milk paint. So that's milk paint. And I was able to get the lines in it putting on very slow on the lathe, using, I figured this is about 6 coats. It goes on really thin. I don't think it really works with milk paint. It starts off as a powder, mix it with warm water. You have to strain it out, put it on. But I was able to put the milk paint on the outside, finish the inside, finish the foot, so you get these nice sharp lines. I thought the milk paint came out nice. Colors, the milk paint colors are all kind of muted antique sort of shades. Pumpkin and yellow.
Don't shake your pieces till I get a picture of them. Oh, yeah. So 2 things. This is a willow pearl.
Wow.
And when I grabbed it, I put it in the truck. Most of the bark was off, not all, but most. And so I knew this outside edge was going to be there. And as soon as I put it down, I said, that edge is staying. So what I did was I put it between centers, the burl. I had cut off, no, I did not cut that. I just put it between centers, and I only took off enough to make a tenon. So as the piece was, crazily out of balance, all I did was take off enough to make the tenon. Once I had the tenon, then I turned it around, hollowed it, then I used a jam chuck to take the tenon off. But before I did that, while I had it in the chuck, I just literally took all the bark off with a carpenter's chisel, peeling it off, peeling it off, sanding it. It was quite a job. Most of the bark had fallen off, but the half that didn't, willow bark it was extremely hard. I used a wire wheel at one point to try to help out. I mean, it was a challenge, but I wanted this edge, and I got it.
How much you selling that for?
I don't know. This will probably go. I mean, if I bring this to fine furnishing, I would think it's in the $200 range. I don't know that. I don't really. I just wanted that edge on there.
That's one of your nicest pieces.
I wanted that edge.
I would just keep it. I wouldn't
Yeah.
sell that because that's something to be proud of.
Yeah. Well, I have a whole bunch of willow. I actually
It may not come out that nice.
the next bowl I left half the bark inclusion in the piece itself. That came out really. It's not done yet. But it's coming out quite nice. Secondly, so school starts in a couple of weeks, and a couple of kids that are returning had asked me, last year at the end of the year, that if they could do more turning and less woodworking. So I've been struggling with it for a couple of weeks, trying to figure out what to do. So I had a friend of mine at a sawmill cut me up 3x3s, green pine, spruce or pine. They're soft as butter to turn, and I can cut them to any size I want. So I ended up with 40 feet I bought. Wow. So if anybody wants a blank, I'm going to tell you what to do with it. So now that the kids want to learn how to turn, now I need to teach myself how to turn the right way so I can explain it to them. So I'm going to get a couple of really good spindle gouges and bowl gouges. And I've got 40 feet of soft green pine that I could use to teach these kids spindle work. But with that said, I've been watching a lot of videos from, the link is on the newsletter. I call it Tom because Tom wants it. I don't know what his name is. He's from the UK. The work he does with the spindle gouge, him and Richard Rathman is amazing. So yesterday I took a blank. He had a spindle technique that he uses from a square between centers. He's got the thing shaped in three passes. And after watching it 3 or 4 times, I realized what he was actually doing. So I did it yesterday and made a Christmas tree as a practice, because I think that's something the kids will be able to do. Today, I said it's time to break the skew out. So using 2 different skews that I have, actually 3 different skews, without doing anything else, so from rough to round. One thing I've never done is practice. In 10 years, I've never done a practice piece. This and the Christmas tree is probably the first one. So if you know, especially with the skew, you know, I know everybody's got that fear of the deadly skew. It wasn't that bad. Between centers, I actually brought the cup center. I brought another one, so I have one for each lathe. And, you know, with the skew, this takes a lot of the fear out. And the fact that it's green and pine, it takes a lot of that out as well. So great practice pieces, and you throw them away. You don't have to make anything. It's just, you know, I've never done it till today. Today was the first time I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just break out the skew, and then I turned this in. I was like, and I started to get some shape in there. And I said, you know what? So every now and then, maybe once a week or something, I think I'm gonna I got 40 feet of it. So, you know,
Made birdhouses.
just anything. I mean, I made the Christmas tree. I'll have the kids, you know, make one and paint them and whatever, you know.
Snowman.
You know, it's snowman. Yeah, I mean, it's great for, you know, if you have a technique that you're interested in, you know, you're talking about undercutting and stuff like that. You have a piece that you want to just rip through and see what happens, and then toss it. You either learn or, you know, throw it away.
Start again.
Piece of green pine. Yeah, exactly. So I brought in 4. If anybody's interested, knock yourself out. I just, again, it's now I need to mentally teach myself the right way to turn so I can show the kids. And that's what I'm doing with this. I wouldn't show them how to use the skew by no means, but you know, the spindle gouge they will use, the roughen gouge, you know, and I'll trim those down appropriate to whatever they want to make, and see what happens. See what happens.
Rick, what's the finish on your burro?
So we had a small hiccup with the finish. So the outside rough edge, the whole thing is epoxy. The whole piece is epoxy. And on top of the epoxy, I use Halcyon. And because I had already taken the tendon off, and the piece when it was spinning, I have an old Delta lathe with a barbecue rotisserie motor on it, so it's not very strong. So as this piece was rolling, it would roll and then boom, and roll and boom. So rather than break my motor, after the epoxy cured, I took the tendon off because I didn't want to go do that. I didn't want to keep going. It's too heavy for what I was doing. So when I put the Halcyon on the inside, I got bubbles and drips. So I started sanding it, went a little bit too much with the sanding. So then I said, well, now I got to take it all off. So the inside is actually tried and true on top of the epoxy. So the epoxy was there. I took the Halcyon pretty much off and then put the tried and true on to cover up the damage that was done. But I ruined the, when I put the Halcyon, and I knew it too, I said, I'm going to put the Halcyon on and I'm going to get puddles, which I did. I knew it, but
What's Halcyon?
it's a water-based marine varnish. It's sold by Total Boat. So the Total Boat epoxy has no UV protection. So you have to put something over it for UV, and that Roland told me use that. So that's what I should have just put the tried and true over, right? Instead of, but I like the halcyon finish when it comes out right without the drips. It's really nice. Like this was rolling, so I didn't get the drips on the outside. It's when I had it sitting flat, that's when I got that. I tried to do it while I was sitting flat, and the halcyon box. So we tried to do over a box. Over it, yeah.
Trying to get those symptoms.
It's supposed to, but and you'll feel that if you feel this, you can feel that it's really not. It's on top. You can feel it. But I don't think this is going to be a fruit bowl. This is more of a somebody's going to put a fruit basket together or something. Yeah, they're not having a salad in that bowl, so I'm not really. I wasn't really worried about it. So that's that. And then Jane didn't mention it, so I just want to bring up.
Was it on my list?
Yes.
Oh, no.
Christmas party is coming soon.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Somebody should step up and try to organize that, or at least start talking about it, because it's going to sneak up on you.
Wish there was more people here.
I'm a little, well, not really that surprised because it is August, it's hot, still summertime, kids are going back to school next week, that type of thing, so.
Something to think about.
Right. Yeah, but the two upcoming shows that we're gonna do, the woodworkers went out and had those business postcards done, so I had them double their order, so now we have some really nice handouts, full color, with the dates of our meetings and all that. So, we could get together with two good shows back to back, November and December.
Are they in the second show also, or just we are?
Just us, yeah, that's the Elves for Elders is just the wood chart. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's a really good show. It'll help, and it's 2 weeks before Christmas, so you'll get good attendance. Anything that doesn't sell will go on display at the Warwick Mall and be sold there. So,
Nice.
yeah. So, pretty interesting.
Nick Raymond's in that box.
Oh, yeah. In that radiation every day.
Oh,
That's just the machine that goes around for that.
Where's he inside? He doesn't like it. It will burn. Yeah.
He was like, oh, this is nothing. 10 minutes. Yeah. Like,
Yeah, but
that's what I did.
Change colors, I got white smoke coming out. Oh, man.
Yeah.
And then I got the final version. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah, nothing. We have to do, yeah, yeah.
We're not this year.
Okay.
And we should go.
That's nice.
I nab these things.
I won't tell them that.
No, to be a surprise.
I did say to him, I said, you're gonna keep working? Oh, yeah, it's nothing. All right.
Still doing chemo.
No.
It's better, okay? Because radiation and chemo, they work together. Yeah, it's pill form. He probably takes the pill form.
And we decided to go.
He did take it.
What stage does he have?
Nice. Let's get into that kind
So I
of
was busy
Okay.
doing something, wasn't I?
detail. But I just told him, that's gonna burn your out so oh, no big deal.
Ohio Risk.
Like, I don't know. I finally went through it and I think you're in for a bit of a surprise.
Yeah. I go in every now and then and fill in there. Where the frick is this from? Yeah, that's us. And then I say something, I'll go, I don't know, I don't saw that one.
Yeah, it is. Very pretty. The rays, I just started lighting up this.
All right.
No, he tried.
I feel it.
Oh, this is the hardest thing.
Running the bike in, I've been working on this, but they're a lot of work. It's a phone, so there's just a base.
You're hollowing those both ends?
Yeah.
Hollowing one end, flipping, hollowing the other.
Right. I start with the base.
Okay, have a wonderful day.
And then turn
All right,
around.
I'll let you know when I talk to them. Okay, and I'm gonna check with the Exodus Running School, because they have an audio visual program. So I'll see what they can suggest. I didn't. Okay. The other thing we gotta think about is a liability waiver or to sign before they come to do their demo.
I think the other group has one.
It just needs
It's pretty intense. Let me,
Okay.
I'll double check, I think.
You know,
So sending his ad,
I'm really surprised.
For this, like,
yeah, for when he comes in.
Had-
no, our
Because it-
insurance covers
I
it.
mean, it was, it's so bad.
Okay.
We have insurance, right?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, that covers it. So even if we're out doing a demo and somebody gets hurt,
Okay,
as long as it's been sanctioned by the group,
yes,
then we're covered.
okay. All right,
I think they do have a liability.
send me his name in.
But even if you, sign a liability and you get hurt, I don't give a fuck about liability. You're gonna talk to my lawyer. But that insurance will cover that.
Okay.
Yeah, everyone, I need a check. I gotta pay Juan. Sorry. What are we gonna do with that?
Greg, I'm not buying one. You do that turn or what? You want me to do something
So
next month, or Christmas one, or
You wanna do
Shane, you what? Let me know when you want it.
Let me know you're available.
His name is Juan Ferrer. Ferrer.
Okay. How much? What I could do is, if you want to do it somehow, I could do that. I'll pull out some ornaments, see what, because some of them get a little complicated.
I mean, it gives everybody 2 months to work on.
You want something that's not too hard.
Let me know when you want it.
Okay, yeah, I mean, we'll collect everything in November.
What are we gonna do with
We'll
this?
collect everything in November. Show us. Or take it with you. I don't
No,
know.
he just made one for my daughter,
I know, I know.
and I burnt it.
Oh, nice.
I had it too close to my stove, but it's a burnt mark in the issues.
Yeah, I don't know,
I know.
Everybody has one mark.
See, I'm gonna go, now, this is really, this is for salt, right? That's that's what he was thinking, right? Because I would have gone a little deeper and maybe.
He was thinking how far you got to.
yeah, well,
The one I had was all about this.
you can put that in.
Thank you, sir.
This would have blown apart if you kept playing with it.
Yeah, I started looking at it and going, no, there's too many cracks in this thing.
You know, he can relax.
And you stopped at a good time.
Yeah.
Good job. I mean,
Because I looked at it and I said, all right, Roland's gonna yell at me because it's not deeper.
No, it was good you stopped.
You know, Rick, this is so unique. I think 200, I don't want to sell a price on this and sell it for 400.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's very unique. I mean,
If I didn't screw the bottom up, I would have agreed. But I know the bottom's wrong, so.
But I don't think
But
anybody's
who's
gonna
gonna
notice
notice
the bottom.
I know.
Nobody's gonna notice the bottom except for you.
You can feel it.
but it's part of the thing.
it's part of it. Who cares?
Yeah, how come you didn't use the good stuff on it?
Yeah.
That would have been a better to put on.
You'll laugh if I tell you I did.
400.
Chris Rowe called me about 3 months ago.
Oh,
Hey,
he just made a
I'm
bowl.
just finishing up
Made
this
one
last
and it
piece, I need a little bit more good stuff. You know?
Is that,
Yeah.
he was
All right,
talking about.
I'll
the
come
second
again.
one. It's,
So you didn't have
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I haven't had any and,
How much?
325?
yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, the good stuff actually will play on that versus the, tried and true.
He has a lot of.
I kinda knew that, and I
some of
was
these
like,
things, and
Oh,
he's
you know,
big money.
yeah, I had to get rid of the drifts because they
He
were like,
goes,
Right, yeah.
Tiverton,
they were long.
Yeah. I haven't used that
Farmers
stuff
market on
out there
Sunday.
forever.
but Saturday morning,
girl
sometime, I don't know if he goes all the time. He's up
She
in Situate.
canceled 3 times already.
Oh, okay.
Now they got rid of her.
Oh,
I was really excited to get her there and find out, you know.
In situ.
the right way to do that.
And
You know where the gas station
Yeah,
is,
whatever.
Yeah.
Vaguely.
where they pump it for you?
Yeah.
Great place to get gas.
Okay, so that's,
You go down West Main.
that's on Saturday.
Now I
There's
gotta learn
another
to-
guy there, his name
The
is
grind
John.
is really
He's
nice.
Turner. I looked at him.
I actually use the top to shop in the big drill.
Oh,
big
no,
drill
no,
bit,
no.
So I could just go and,
You know,
whereas on a regular wheel, I wouldn't be able to see what I
I
was
might learn
doing. I was
something.
able to.
I learned something all the time.
Yeah, but I didn't
It's
know
a
what that
good,
was
it's
for.
a good,
Go in that hole and use that as,
Demonstrate.
I did, demo it.
So it
Open
because it was designed for
5 other guys.
planing blades. You put the planing blade.
Just watching them, you know,
Okay.
doing a demo.
Hold
in
it
front of
just
people.
perfect.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know where that went, so,
It works.
but I did figure out how to use
That's
the,
what I think. It's
jamming
like,
up from the
you
bottom.
did a good job.
I mean, it is what it.
Yeah. It's a nice,
We need
it's
to
a nice
get a-
little thing.
Especially with the CBS.
But underneath
Yeah,
is
well,
gas.
Yeah. That's what they are. I thought
He's
they
doing
were.
it professionally.
No,
He's doing good.
I took the
What
diamond
is it,
off.
3 bedroom
Put CBS.
Oh,
Really?
Okay.
Yeah, it had glass on
I'm
the
impressed.
That's what
What
it
the
comes
three-
from.
Oh, okay.
He's using the
Works
smaller
good
blade.
too,
Yeah.
but CBS.
Yeah, those
He's
are,
getting
I like
it done.
that.
yeah, and he hand carves all his,
He's making money, that's good.
Yeah.
He's getting a living at it, right?
they get anywhere from $700 to $1,100 on one day.
Yeah. Perfect. Keeps him going.
Yep.
Take
I'm
care
out
of
of
it.
there.
Have fun.
See ya. Oh, wait a minute.
Tell them we said thank you. I mean, I was,
I thought it was pretty good.
yeah, no, he's well educated on what he does, I'll tell you that. Well educated.
The, he needs to have a monkey.
Well. Well, not that really, but. All right. Oh, good. We're all good. I'll let you know on, I think Ross is gonna do ornaments next month. He's gonna check the calendar, and then we got Rick Angus for October, and then Roland and I will do November. Oh,
I'm always out there talking about.
there you go. Thank you, Jane.